Good morning. Today we are continuing to talk along the lines of waiting upon the Lord. And in this week we are simply just talking about waiting upon the Lord and how David waited upon the Lord. Waiting upon the Lord is simply to be at a place where you are saying, well, God has promised. And since He has promised, I am now at a place where I am only resting in seeing and knowing how He brings it forth by His ability. And we have seen that waiting upon the Lord has got a lot to do with knowing that He's the one that gives you life, to the point that you are at a place where you will say, well, since He's the one that gives me life, and that's how I'm saved from death, that I will be afraid of no one. Now, listen to what He says here in Psalm 27 verse 3. It says, though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not be afraid. Though war should rise against me, in this I will also not be afraid, and I'll be confident in the Lord. Why will he be confident in the Lord? Because even if war would arise, what is war? It is it's something. It's a threat on your own life. It is someone that wants to come and kill you, to take what is yours. He says, even if I'm at a place of war, even if I see people encamp by the thousands around me, I will not be afraid. Why? Because I'm at a place where I know that He's the one, that who God is the strength of my life. And He is stronger than whatsoever can come against me. Then verse 4, which we're going to get in today, he says, one thing I have desired of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, and behold the beauty of the Lord, and inquire of Him. So he's simply saying that this is what I want from God. I want to dwell in His house. And as I dwell in His house, I will behold the beauty of the Lord. So he says, all the days of my life, all the days where God is the strength of my life, I want to be at this place where I behold the beauty of God in His house. Now, what David is talking about here should not be interpreted as going to church every Sunday. That is not what the beauty of the house of God is. That is not what it means to inquire in His temple. We need to understand that the Jewish people thought of the temple or the house of God as the place where heaven and earth collides. It is basically a manifestation, or what we would call a signpost, or what we would call a pocket of heaven on earth. And what he's simply saying is, and I believe this is how we wait upon the Lord, is that in our life we dwell in the place where heaven and earth comes together, where the temple of God is. So in our mind and in our heart, we are meditating and reflecting and pondering and looking at life from the perspective of where heaven and earth comes together. Now that might sound complex, but let me explain to you what it looks like for us. The place where heaven and earth comes together for us today is Jesus. If the temple is the place where God dwells, in other words, where heaven is on earth, that's exactly what it would be for the ancient Jewish people. It's the place where heaven is on earth. It is God dwelt in the most holy place, and then that was where heaven and earth collides, and that would be the manifestation of heaven on earth. And he says, I want to dwell at the place where heaven and earth meet. Now Jesus said, break this temple down, and in 3 days I will rebuild it. So what he was saying is the place where heaven and earth meet is Him. Isn't Jesus God with us? What did the Jews understand under God with us? They understood God is with us when He is in His temple. Now we find that God is with us in Jesus. That means God has come and He is now with us in the fact that He is that this man that He brought forth, Jesus Christ, born of a virgin, that was raised from the dead, never to die, that is the place where heaven and earth comes together. The unification between earth and heaven is in the man Jesus. Now, if we would take what David has said here and make it applicable to our own lives, we can basically say the following. We can say, well, we are at the place where we can say, the Lord is the light of my life, and He is my salvation, as we've seen yesterday and the day before, that Jesus Christ is the word of life, this word of life that God has promised is the strength of my life. The fact that Jesus was raised from the dead is what protects me from death. And as David said here, I want to be in the house of the Lord, and this is what I require. All that I require of God is that He helps me and guides me, that I can basically dwell in the house of the Lord and there inquire of God. Let me look at that word inquire and share with you what it means. Inquire means to seek, to inquire, to consider, to seek, to look, to consider, or to reflect. So, the way we wait upon the Lord is to be at a place where we are thinking and pondering and asking questions and looking at our lives and at the world, the functioning of the world, how we function in the world, what we should do next from the perspective of the resurrected Jesus. The temple that was restored. Break this temple down, in 3 days I will rebuild it. So what would it mean to dwell in the house of God? Where does God dwell? He dwells in the resurrected Jesus. The fullness of the Godhead is bodily in Him. And now, from there, He's now poured out His Spirit on you. So to be in a place where you wait upon the Lord, to be at a place where you are thinking of life, is to be at a place where you say, I dwell in the temple of God. And for us as a New Testament people to dwell in the temple of the Lord, to dwell in the house of the Lord, is to dwell in the message and the truth and the reality of the bodily resurrection of Jesus and what that means. So, let us just read Psalm 27 verse 1 and then verse 4. The Lord is my light and my salvation. The Lord is the strength of my life. Now, remember yesterday we spoke on the word of life, which is Jesus. And when He was raised from the dead, we find that this resurrection of Christ is now full of grace, which we've defined many times in our devotional, which is the power to preserve your life. So now I find that Jesus was bodily raised from the dead, and we find that His rulership over me preserves my life. Even if I should die, I'll be raised from the dead. Now, with that in mind, we now say, who will we be afraid of? So we now find David looking through the lens of God being the strength of his life at the world, and he's saying, who will I now be afraid of? He says, I will be afraid of no one. He says, the only thing that I seek is while I live in this world, while there's all these things that push in on my life, that wants to threaten my life, the only thing that I need in this time, and this is the only thing we need, is, as David says, the only thing I desire of the Lord is that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. So, what David says, the answer to the problem that we have, when we know that He is the one that gives us life and we still have enemies around us, is to dwell in the house of the Lord, which is the resurrected Christ, as I've just explained. So, the way we wait upon the Lord is by reflecting, thinking, inquiring, from the perspective of, I'm co-raised with Christ. And that is what Colossians chapter 3 is all about. And I know I've preached about that, I spoke about that the whole of last week, but in tomorrow's devotional, we'll just quickly reflect on that and then continue in Psalm 27. Know that you have been co-raised with Jesus. The way we wait upon the Lord is by reflecting and thinking, looking at this world, looking at life through the lens of our co-resurrection with Jesus Christ, where we stand innocent and full of life before God. Amen.